We are on location here at Hotel Commonwealth. We are at the Fenway Park suite at the hotel. You see Fenway Park behind me. I'm Chris Cotillo, obviously, and this is Sean McAdam for a different-looking Fenway rundown than we're used to.
Yeah, this should be fun, Chris, to do it on location and a remote spot just a couple of blocks from Fenway Park. We thank the nice people at Hotel Commonwealth for opening their doors to us and inviting us into the Fenway Park suite, which, as you can see, is just a couple of blocks from the actual Fenway Park. Great place to stay if you're coming into town, or if you just want to get a weekend getaway if you're going to a couple of games. Couldn't be more convenient.
And just like you, Hotel Commonwealth is a star of the Netflix documentary The Clubhouse that just dropped with some filming here, so you have that in common with them.
Yeah, in fact, I think the crew stayed here for a good chunk of last season as they were filming and producing the series.
So we will get into business. Red Sox are back home. They'll be playing the White Sox across the street here later today, which is not something we can often say as we record the pod, but big 4-game series against what should be a really bad team. I was there last week to watch them lose 2 out of 3. They kind of righted the ship there in Tampa for 2 days. I think the vibes, as the kids say, are more positive now than they were when we last recorded on Tuesday after that horrible loss.
Yeah, the first game in Tampa was a complete disaster, worst loss of the year, although it will get a run for its money for that Friday night game at Wright Field last Friday in Chicago when they made 5 errors. But sloppy and poor pitching and poor hitting, that's a bad combination even against a bad team like the White Sox. Funny thing is that the White Sox have done okay against the Red Sox the last 2 years. They split a 4-game series at home in Chicago that I attended last year. They just took 2 out of 3 from the Red Sox last weekend while you were there, and now the Red Sox, with a little wind at their back, having, as you said, had a little bit of a turnaround series in Tampa. So I think it's incumbent upon the Red Sox to try to take 3 out of 4 this weekend, beat up on a bad team while you can, and keep that momentum going.
And they're in the same spot as they were last year, 10-10. They are 10-10 after a really long homestand last year, heading back onto the road at this point. The reverse is true now as they come home for a homestand that I always feel like the home field advantage marathon weekend is a little bit more. I just feel like the energy around here is more than you normally, have it, and playing theoretically a bad team. I think that should help. 7 at home with the White Sox and Mariners before they go back on the road. The schedule doesn't have a lot of let up, an off day yesterday, but they have to kind of, not split series, but start winning them like they did in Tampa.
Yeah, and you got to beat up on bad teams and take advantage of what the schedule gives you. And for you uniform fetishists out there, and I know you're out there, this is a big weekend. You'll get the white special Patriot Day only unis on Monday, and presumably over the weekend, the debut in 2025 of the yellow uniform tops. And we are only now weeks away from the unveiling of the second City Connect, the Green Monster uniform, so we'll see what that has.
The tone there, can you tell Sean's tone that he does not want to care about uniforms?
I do not. I don't understand the attraction and the fixation that some people have with uniforms. Of course, I'm from a different generation when there were 2 uniforms, white at home and gray on the road, and those days are long gone.
This is a guy who did not see Carolina's new blue throwbacks from the Jordan era that they debuted this season, because if you did, you would become right up there on the uniform fetishist list. I think the biggest story surrounding the Red Sox right now, if you look at Twitter, which we do too much, is Roman Anthony. I think it is the dominant topic right now, and Greg Breslow was asked about it on EEI yesterday. Did a little reporting and figured out why he has been DHing for the last 5 or 6 days. He has a small, minor shoulder injury. It is not the end of the world, but it is something where the Red Sox at this point in the year wanted to shut him down from playing the outfield. They want him to DH. He's the greatest DH in the history of the game because he's just homering and doubling every at-bat, a grand slam, and another homer in the first game yesterday in Rochester. To me, I think people think this could be any day. I know you definitely don't think that. This injury, to me, delays it a little bit. They want him to get back in the swing of things and be in the outfield because they want him to be an everyday outfielder when he does come up. And the development, as Craig Breslow pretty candidly outlined to me in a conversation about 10 days ago, was We want him to keep developing defensively and facing as many left-handed pitchers as possible. They don't want him to come up and be a platoon bat. There's obviously not DH at-bats available. Not that he's a long-term DH, as some have suggested, or first base. Let's note that. They want him to come up and be an everyday outfielder in the big leagues. I think we see exactly how that's going to shake out. And, right now, I would say not on this homestand for sure, but the clock's starting to tick.
Yeah, I suppose, although quite apart from the shoulder injury, which is currently hampering him and limiting him to the point where they don't want to bring him up if he can't play the outfield, there are two variables at play here. One is he's got to absolutely tear up the International League for, to me, an extended period. And he's been very hot for the last 10 days, a couple of homers in Rochester on Thursday. We saw that. But to me, it's got to be sustained domination at AAA to the point where he's proving that he is wasting his time at AAA, that he's got nothing left to prove against AAA hitters in the pitchers in the International League, and then it's time to move him up. And then the second part of that equation is where. And I guess if we're trying to project ahead, that it's got to be continued struggles for Ceddanne Rafaela at the bat, which would open up a scenario whereby he becomes the fourth or fifth outfielder, or a super utility guy who can move between the infield and outfield. And then you either have Anthony in left and shift Duran to center, or keep Duran in left and have Anthony play center. I don't think we're there yet, and those two scenarios have to kind of come together. The extended period of brilliance with the bat at AAA to the point where he's wasting his time by staying there, and an obvious path for everyday opportunities in the big leagues. We don't have either of those yet.
Yeah, and people, I think, got excited about these timelines being moved up because Campbell made the opening day roster. The Red Sox were aggressive with him in a way they haven't been really under a lot of regimes dating back to, I don't know, Benintendi maybe or Jackie Bradley. The need was there at second, and for as much as I talk about what I think of Rafaela's offensive capabilities, like the need is not there right now. And again, they're not going to make Anthony a platoon guy. So you're not going to bump Duran. You're not going to bump Abreu. Rafaela would be the guy, but I just don't think they're there yet. And defensively, it's a huge upgrade to have him roaming center every day, as we've seen. So I think that, the need has to line up. That being said, if Jarren Duran, sprains his ankle tonight and has to miss 2 or 3 weeks, I would guess that Anthony, maybe not immediately because of his own injury, but would be like the replacement we'd see here soon. The Red Sox just aren't in that boat. And a big reason for it is that Wilyer Abreu has proved that he's not a guy you want to replace, and so credit to him for that.
Yeah, obviously he emerged last year as a defensive stalwart, good enough to capture a Gold Glove in his first full season. No Red Sox rookie had ever done that before. There were holes in his swing at times last year. He did struggle in some of his opportunities against left-handed pitching, but the way he came out of the chute this year from opening day with the home run to win the first game of the year, and has continued to be, along with Alex Bregman, their two most reliable, and Trevor Story. Those are the three guys that are carrying them offensively. You've got enough holes here where Duran isn't getting on base. Devers started poorly, got hot for 5 or 6 days, and has cooled off. Tristan Casas still hasn't gotten on track. So certainly Abreu has earned his role as pretty much an everyday right fielder, and I think it's going to stay that way.
So this begs the question that I think we've asked ourselves once a week for the last 3 months, but what the hell is going on with Masataka Yoshida? And at this point, is it just like a DFA candidate? I mean, I know I brought this up in the past, but they are seemingly in no rush to get him healthy. They're in no rush to start that 20-day rehab clock. Things are changing. I wonder if there is some meeting between the sides like, hey, let's just figure out a path forward here that's not together. Total speculation, but when he comes back and he's ready, it's going to be probably around the time Anthony's ready. They already have too many outfielders. They already have an everyday DH. Sean, would not be surprised if he never plays another inning or gets another at-bat in a Red Sox uniform. I just think that's where they are.
Yeah, I think that's a possibility, too. They're obviously trying to kick the can as long as they can here. They are operating under the guise that he's not healthy He's only throwing 110 feet instead of 120 feet. I somehow don't think that's the key to unlock any of this mess. Even when he is healthy, there is no obvious spot for him. If there's no obvious spot for the best hitting prospect in the game in Roman Anthony, then there certainly is no opening for a guy who is a sub-average outfielder without any power or speed, and that's who Masataka Yoshida is at this point, a bat-to-ball guy who can make contact and get on base once in a while, but has very little slug to his game. It's impossible to see how this works unless there's some catastrophic season-ending injury to Rafael Devers, and they are in need of an everyday DH. Even then, he doesn't provide the power that you would expect from that spot. So it really does seem like a dead end. As you said, it seems like they are trying to wait as long as they possibly can before starting that rehab clock, because they know once that starts, it's 3 weeks, and they've got to do something at the end of that time, and they don't have a spot for him. So either a trade in which they take back about 75% of the money, or an out-and-out release and a DFA, who would claim $55 million at this point that he's got coming to him through the 27th season. They're at a dead end, and they're just trying to buy time.
Yeah, definitely a strange situation, one that you could see coming as soon as Bregman was signed, and Rafi was the guy that was moving. It's clear that Craig Breslau's not sentimental about this. It's a Heimblum guy, and it looks like Yoshida's the question marks continue around him. Very strange. Let's get into the pitching a little bit. Richard Fitz's injury is not as bad as previously thought. I don't think we had that update when we last talked Tuesday. The Red Sox are kind of in a bit of flux when it comes to the rotation right now, because you have, guys coming in, guys coming out. Tonight will be Hunter Dobbins for the second time. Fitz is probably going to be out a couple weeks. Sean Newcomb's probably at the end of what was an up and down, but overall okay tenure. Bayo should be back next week. Giolito, after that, Liam Hendricks could be activated tonight or tomorrow. Feels like they're finally getting back to full strength, and there are, some decisions to be made here, especially when it comes to the bullpen with Hendricks. But just what stands out to you from all that? I think, to me, as we talked about the other day, Bayo needing to be really good from the jump is right up there. I don't have much in the way of expectations for Hendricks or Giolito when they come back, because who knows after this long layoff. But I think Bayo is a guy who has to be really, really good and has to step into that number 2 spot from the start.
Yeah, I think what they need to find is somebody who can be close to as consistent as Crochet has been, not obviously as dominant. That's not going to happen with anybody else in that rotation. But when you get beyond Crochet in the rotation, as we get through the 4th turn for some of these guys, they need some consistency. They've had improved performance in the last 2 outings from Walker Buehler. That's encouraging. Tanner Houck has been a disaster except for 1 outing. They've got to figure out what's going on with him and fix him. He's a big part of this. And they need Bayo to step in and give them 6 innings most times and a couple of runs allowed. His inconsistency has been a hallmark of his career. It's time for him to take the ball every 5 days and provide some stability and predictability. But the rotation's kind of, a lot of balls in the air right now. They're going to have to make a decision. Do they send Dobbins back again after tonight, or does he become the guy at the back end and they send Newcomb back? My guess is because they can yo-yo Dobbins back and forth because of options remaining while Newcomb doesn't have any. They probably try to hold on to Newcomb for a bit, but at some point when Giolito comes back, both those guys are going to be extraneous. Dobbins can easily be optioned back to Worcester and continue to serve in a depth role when they need him, but Newcomb's out of options, and given that he's left-handed and had some decent outings, there's a good chance somebody could claim him.
Yeah, my guess is, and by the time this rolls later on, we might have the roster moves, but the guess is a reliever goes down for Dobbins today. Dobbins goes down for Hendricks tomorrow, and they just kind of keep the line moving. Also, the move of Bregman coming back today for Sogard most likely, so some roster shuffling for sure. I do want to get into this to close what's going to be a quicker Fenway rundown from the beautiful Hotel Commonwealth. I think the bullpen has been a strength of this team. We saw that the other night, the last night in Tampa in the 1-0 win. if Garrett Whitlock is good and can give multiple innings, that's a huge plus. If Liam Hendriks can provide something when he comes back, that's a huge plus. Minus one bad day in Chicago last week. Chapman's been pretty good. I have my doubts on the consistency there, but Cora is very high on what he's seen. Slayton's been pretty good. Weissert, Bernardino, some of these bit guys, Zach Kelly has had good outings. I mean, they look like a group that, is pitching a little higher to their capabilities than we must have thought or might have thought. And again, they have not been at full strength because Hendricks hasn't been here yet. Some of the, long guys have been bouncing back and forth. So credit to them for what has been, a mediocre start to the year. Pretty good beginning for them.
Yeah, particularly the high leverage guys. I wrote about this today in my MLB notebook that Chapman has been who you would want him to be. Not perfect, but certainly good enough in the closer's role. You've had Justin Slayton. He had one really bad one in Baltimore where he gave up 4 runs without recording an out. Otherwise, he's been almost perfect. In 7 1/3 innings, he's given up no runs and 1 hit outside of that Baltimore performance. So he's been good. Whitlock has, as we thought, adapted nicely to that multi-inning role where he gives them 2 innings and allows them to stay away from some high-leverage guys as a bridge, either to close the game out himself or to get them to Chapman. I think both lefties, Bernardino and Wilson, have been solid. You mentioned Weissert as a guy who's come in to get out of innings and then maybe go out and start the next one. The bullpen for a team that's 10-10 has been, with a few exceptions, very reliable, and in theory should get stronger when Hendricks is activated, which, as you noted, could come as early as Saturday. It'll be interesting to see, do they give him a 9th inning sometimes where Chapman isn't available? Is he the primary 8th inning high leverage setup guy to get them to Chapman? How often can they go to him early? Do they have to be careful about giving him days to rest and bounce back? All of that's going to be fascinating because this guy has not faced major league hitting in a regular season setting since June of 23. That's a long time ago.
And, I know that the injury surfaced after the fact, and we found out that his elbow had a compressed nerve and all this stuff. But the last time we saw Liam Hendriks in spring training, it was a disaster. And you had scouts telling you that something was off. Maybe the cortisone shot, maybe the getting the injury fixed is all he needed. Maybe not. Maybe it's just going to be a steep curve after this long layoff. And, credit to him for coming back through all he's gone through. But to say that this guy is going to be the all-star level that we've seen would be a huge leap.
Yeah, you can't assume that, and that's why I wonder if they ease him into this.
I'm going to say even the 7th before Slayton. I think that's possible.
Yeah, it could be, and wisely, I think Hendricks has taken the attitude of, hey, I can't assume anything. I can't come back here as a guy that had 30 saves 3 years in a row and an all-star and all of that. It's been a long time, and however they want to use me initially is what I'm going to be happy to do. And maybe, as you noted, it could be in low leverage settings initially until he gets his feet wet. They get a little bit more of a sense of how the stuff is going to play against major league hitters. How frequently can they go to him? Can he go back-to-back days? All of that's going to be determined when he's activated.
We will start covering that as soon as today across the street at Fenway. Thanks again to the great people at Hotel Commonwealth as we record this from the Fenway Park suite. Highly recommend. Can't have a better walk to the ballpark, and we're about to enjoy that. So thanks for listening.